Hi everyone, it's Father Michael Trummer. I wanted to talk about some of the biggest regrets I have in my life. It might not be like the deepest regrets of my soul necessarily, because some of that might be a little personal, but just in terms of five significant regrets I have that I feel comfortable sharing online. The first would be playing too many video games. Like if I could take a time machine and go back, I would play less video games. I mean, I just played so many, and I might not have been officially addicted as some people are today, but I certainly just played a lot. And that changed with each stage in life, but just so much of my life was my head was in some sort of screen. It could be a Game Boy screen, Nintendo 64, Nintendo Wii, whatever it might be. And just there was a really large lack of balance in my life because of the sheer amount of video games. People might say, okay, you're a kid. Don't be so hard on yourself. You're an adult now. Just kids can have fun. Kids can play video games. We can debate, how much video games should kids play. But even with that, I think it was just too much. I think maybe a little bit of video games here and there is more acceptable, but that certainly wasn't the case with me, especially as I got older, like in high school and college. There's plenty of times of the weekend where I just stay up till 4 a.m. Sometimes all nighters just playing video games, and then I would just have shot energy, wouldn't be motivated to do homework, wouldn't be motivated to work, was extra cranky around my family. And so there's just so many regrets I have about playing so many video games. Of course, now we know the effects of just too much screen time in general. Video games can be very, very stimulating, very, very addictive. Can really release a strong dopamine response, even adrenaline as well. And I just don't think that the human brain was really designed for this constant access to something so stimulating. And it's not to say that I wouldn't have been a distractible person anyways, but I think that really affected my brain in a negative way. And the research shows that. The second big regret I have of my life would be not reading more books. I think for most of my life, well, I would say up to the age of maybe 20, I didn't really read hardly anything. Of course, in grade school we had AR, so we had to read something. High school was not really required as much. There might have been some reading for class, but I certainly didn't read hardly anything for class. But apart from my schoolwork, just reading in general, it was just not something I did. I think the one book I read was like on physical fitness. And so my life radically changed when I started reading books. The book that really changed my life pretty dramatically was the book Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. That certainly isn't the only book, but that was definitely a huge turning point. And just the format of a book really is something pretty powerful because it requires more sustained concentration. It allows one to receive really deeply from someone who's offering this wisdom. So if I could go back in time, that's one of the things I would change is I would read more books, especially earlier on in my life. The third regret I have, one of the things I regret deeply about my life, is not really investing more in relationships. And so this might sound a little bit dramatic because I wasn't totally isolated. I always had friends in high school, friends in college, of course, friends in seminary. So I was not a complete loner, but when I was younger, maybe in high school, a lot of my relationships could have had maybe more depth, especially again if there was like less video games and things like that. But certainly, actually, in college, when I was working more and really taking school more seriously, I didn't really have balance in my life. And now studies show that just trying to work all the time actually, not only is it not efficient, but it's actually not really productive and it'll actually backfire on your productivity. So there was a point in time where I started to really take school seriously. I started to take work more seriously. And even into seminary, I was just like, would not do anything if I had schoolwork to do. And I had these other hobbies and I cared about productivity. There was a way that I took for granted just the important relationships in my life, or that I could have invested more deeply in them, whether that was more my immediate family or whether that was just the people who were my coworkers or my fellow students in school or seminary. I think I really didn't have a good balance and neglected the importance and the value of relationships. The fourth regret I have on this list of one of the biggest regrets I have in my life is listening to too much music and not really discerning the type of music I listen to. So there's a point in time, especially when I started working, I had 3 hours in the morning every morning just to listen to music or a podcast or nothing. I could have prayed, but there's just so many drives, so much time working. I just listen to music, and it wasn't really that good of music. And I'm not saying that every song we listen to has to be just like a praise and worship song about Jesus, although I think some of that would have been nice. I'm not saying it has to just be churchy stuff all the time, but music really can affect us, I think, in a way that we're not totally aware of. And so, one, just the sheer quantity of time. I wish I would have spent more time just for silence, just to pay attention to what was going on inside of me, my feelings, my thoughts, desires, all these things. I wish I would have taken more time to pray, just to talk with God a little bit. And certainly, I wish I would have taken time to utilize all the amazing audio resources we have, like more time to listen to podcasts and audiobooks, things that really nourish my mind. And again, it's not like I wouldn't have listened to any music at all, but it certainly would have thought more about the type of music I was listening to and the sheer quantity I was listening to. And the fifth regret I have in this list, one of my 5 biggest regrets in life, is really not living in the present moment more. And this is something that's very easy for us to fall into, which is always waiting for the next thing, or we're not fully engaged in the moment because we're waiting for something better. So even in high school, in classes that were boring, I didn't find as interesting. It was just kind of so many days was just waiting until the end of the day in school, or waiting until the class was over. And then, later on, it could be different stages of life, waiting until I graduate high school, wait until the semester's over in college, wait until Christmas break, wait until the weekend when I was in seminary, waiting to join the graduate level seminary, waiting for the next year, waiting to become a priest even. And really just so much of life was maybe not fully taken advantage of because was just kind of waiting for the next thing. And so even in those moments that I didn't like as much, if there were classes I didn't like as much, I wish I would have just fully engaged them. There was a couple of times where I did do that. Like I knew I was going to join seminary and I was still had a semester of calculus and physics and a bunch of other, like STEM type classes. And I was like, well, this semester is going to be horrible if I'm just waiting for this to be over. So I need to engage this. And so even though I knew I probably wasn't going to use calculus or chemistry or physics really anymore, being a priest, I fully engaged that semester. And it was so much better. It's just times where I was just living in this mindset of just waiting for the next thing. And just, again, there's so many beautiful things that happen, even if it's not the ultimate goal. Even if our goal is to have a career, get out of college, get a job, for many people to have a spouse and a family, there are these really important goalposts. But then just to not avoid whatever's happening in the present moment, because even if it isn't the ultimate goal, there's something there that God has for us, and God is a God of the present moment, and He is with us in the present moment. And so that's something I would do differently. And here's the thing: just to conclude this video, I'm not here just to just live with a sense of regret and just wishing things were different isn't healthy. So I'm not trying to just have an unhealthy attitude towards the past. The reality is that we should just entrust the past to God. Like God can make use even of our sin, let alone just other mistakes we've made. And so, I didn't read as many books as I could have, or played too many video games, or just wasted a lot of time in general. God can still use that. And so it's important not to actually live with that heavy sense of regret and lament. I say this more just to share wisdom for anyone else who's listening that could learn from my experience. Someone else that can learn from the mistakes I've made, but I don't want to deny God's goodness and power that He can make use of the mistakes I've made in my life. So hopefully that's helpful for you, just to hear about the mistakes I've made in my life, and maybe that can be wisdom for you and how to live your life. God bless.